Many people fail to grasp how seminal the moment we're living in is. I have been in technology since 92. I came to US in 92. I have never seen an opportunity like this. And I have seen a lot of them. For those of you who are listening, it doesn't matter what field you're in, right? You might be in HR. AI is gonna 100% change everything. It already is. It changes the way you're attracting people.
Yeah.
It changes the way you're developing people. It changes the way in building the skill map to know for a new project, who are the people I can go and get to. There are a couple ways the CIO's role is changing and enhancing and more challenging. In the past, we used to have technology companies and non-technology companies. Now we're gonna have more and more technology companies and technology-enabled companies.
Hi Vishal, welcome to Atomic Conversations.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you so much for being here. I just want to jump straight into it with something that you're really passionate about and something that we've also been watching. You were part of the launch of Lexmark Ventures, in your firm, and it's an internal incubator that you've launched. Can you tell us more about it and how, why you thought that was something that you needed to work on?
So I think every company tries to think how to accelerate innovation, right? And especially when you're a larger company, there are a lot of barriers to innovation because you have a natural tendency to think, in big numbers, and so that's why if you look at companies like Cisco, they always end up buying companies because you run out of patience in incubating things within. And so the idea behind Lexmark Ventures was to give it the space that typically a startup has, where it's not having to think about every quarter, what have I built, what have I shipped, how much is the revenue, how is it still, is it meaningful for a company of that size? So that was one part, and the other part was to also attract the type of people who are more interested in flourishing in a more unstructured environment. And so we had a lot of amazing people in the company who wanted to work in that kind of environment, who felt that by being part of that, they would sort of feel more freedom, feel something special. In some ways, also have more responsibility as well. So that was the whole idea about creating something like that.
No, that's awesome. I also think it's very rare. We're going to come back to this, but is it also because of the fact that also not because, but is it also analogous to the fact that you are both a CIO and a CTO, and therefore, you see a lot more of the landscape?
So what's interesting is when I joined the company, I didn't have the responsibility. That came later to me.
Okay.
And I think also what happens is, people gain trust in you as they see you delivering, right? And so certainly by being on both sides, you're able to get ideas, through a faster pace, and you also have the tools now to make those ideas happen. So certainly it made logical sense, but the company obviously had to see that, okay, is this something that we can actually, can we trust the person, especially given I was remote, I was not even based there. And the thing is, I've also had experience in incubating things in other large companies. So in Cisco, I was kind of the co-founder of our IoT efforts, and I incubated our move in IoT to create first the hospital room of the future, or the healthcare of the future, healthcare and IoT, and then retail store of the future, or the bank branch of the future. And so I have seen in the past as well both the joys and the challenges that come by innovating these kinds of things in large companies, because everybody wants success, but the patience is what most people lack, and they don't kind of know, right? Because they're designed to run like large companies.
Yes.
So they're just not set up for having the talent. They can't really give equity, the incentives, as well as the strategic patience, and even sometimes alliance. Like if I need 7 layers of approval for doing an alliance with somebody, a startup can move very fast, right? So you have to kind of create a structure that lets you apply a little bit of a different set of rules to have that strategic speed that you would not have otherwise.
No, I get that completely. Like one other thing that's almost like adjacent to this that I wanted to ask, with AI coming in, and a lot of pressure, not just from the outside, but also from the inside. Like our organizations also want to adopt
Yeah.
right? And you are in a particularly important place in the organization where you're in charge of both adoption as well as, like, for example, security, guardrails and so on. What has been your philosophy now in the last like couple of years with just the speed with which things are
Sure.
happening?
So, we were just having, since we're in Sri Lanka right now, we were hearing from people like Bipul of Rubrik and others. And I think many people fail to grasp how seminal the moment we're living in is. I have been in technology since 92. I came to US in 92. I have never seen an opportunity like this. And I have seen a lot of them, right? And so uh, th- some people compare it to, okay, hey, is it like the mobile revolution? It's actually far more. All of those were kind of more, okay, some incremental. This is more quantum, more dramatic, uh, fundamentally reshapes how companies can be born, what offerings they can have, how they can deliver, what they can do. And as we discussed, change is not something that most enterprises grasp very well. And so I think it will, I think there is an opportunity, especially for, people who are listening to this, to really think about how do you take advantage of this truly um, once a lifetime kind of change that is happening, because this is as big as the industrial revolution or the knowledge worker revolution that kind of came in. And are we really, so this is the sort of stuff you see once in maybe every 40 years or so, 40, 50 years. And so to have any organization being set up to take advantage of that, you have to be able to embrace change. For that, you need three things, right? You need talent, meaning how do you create the talent within the entire organization so people can even envision what is the art of the possible. If only you have one group driving it, it will not work. So one of the things we did that was very unique was, when I joined in February 2021, and in that same month, I ended up striking an alliance with North Carolina State. They had this thing called the AI Academy because they realized we only had 5 people at that time, even though Gen AI had not come, but I had always been a big believer in AI. I had created a search engine before Google did, right? And so I said, okay, if we tie up with NC State, they can train our people in AI. And this was a daily training that happened for a period of 1 year, 3 hours a day. And so we were able to scale our talent 20x from these 5 data scientists and get 100 people trained, about 10 to 15 people in a cohort over 6 cohorts, and each of these cohorts running for 1 year. And we thought we'll have a lot of people leaving or dropping out, and none of that happened because people know themselves. This is what's happening. They want to invest in themselves, invest in their future, as well as their love for the company.
Wow.
So the first part, I think, is talent. If you're an organization today, whether you're for, no matter where you're in the world, whether you're for profit or non-profit, you have to build a talent that will think, because the talent will not just tell you how to do AI, it'll tell you where you can apply AI. And we train these people not just in IT or in my group. More than half of the people we trained were in other organizations. And the reason for that was I wanted our CFO, instead of saying, do I approve or not approve of this AI investment, think about what is his most key use case. Like his most key use case was, how much cash do I need? This is the cost of capital. If I overpredict, I'm wasting a lot of money, which could be earning a lot of interest, right? But I could not bring that use case to him. His team can. So if they are enabled, if sales is enabled to say, hey, what can sales do differently? What can marketing do differently? What can product do differently? What can supply chain do differently? What can manufacturing do differently? Then that happens, right? So we talked about talent. The second is alignment. So alignment comes from obviously both creating the talent throughout the org, but also I think when you are a C-level, your biggest strength is not your knowledge, it's your ability to collaborate, right? Really collaborating with the rest of the executive team to say, this is an amazing opportunity for all of us. How do we really work on it together? So we had, for example, we created an AI council where each of the C-levels was able to nominate a VP as their representative to it, because they're going to trust their person a little bit more than me telling them. I don't know their business.
Definitely.
Right? Like I know high level, obviously, what they do, but I'm not living that every day. I don't know. I know what the company priorities are, but I don't know exactly what challenges they're facing that are truly a game changer. So the alignment is key. We were lucky. A lot of the people had an engineering background, and so the trust in technology was there. But I put a lot of effort in creating that alignment, which I think is very key, no matter how many groups you have, like we did. And I think the final part of AI that a lot of people forget is it's still all around data, right? If I have the alignment and the talent, then I have the ability to find the use cases, find things that will make a 7, 8, 9-figure difference, have the ability to execute on those use cases. But then with the data, I have the ability to create competitive advantage. So we invested a lot in data as well. So that's what I would say you have to do if you're really serious about AI.
Yeah, that's a lovely answer also because it gives me a bunch of things to like, give frameworks for. This is what people look for when they're listening, right? People, alignment, and data. And like, I want to like, sort of like, it's the same question, but with Lexmark, right? Like, is it sort of the same way in which you've thought about like, getting, because like when you invest so much time, like I was very surprised with that. A year's investment, Vishal, is a lot of investment in like
It
people,
is,
right?
yeah.
Do you think that we need the same kind of like almost paranoia, like that we learn as much as we can?
Yeah, if you think that this is happening once in your life,
Yeah.
then you have to decide
Yeah.
what are you willing to put in it, right? Are you willing to make it count?
Yeah.
Or is this a good to have?
Okay.
Right? So your investment has to be commensurate with the size of the opportunity. And I think this not even as a company, I think of this as an individual, right? For those of you who are listening, it doesn't matter what field you're in, right? You might be in HR. In HR, AI is going to 100% change everything. It already is.
Yeah.
It changes the way you're attracting people.
Yeah.
It changes the way you're developing people. It changes the way in building the skill map to know for a new project who are the people I can go and get to. So there's just you have to really immerse yourself to understand the magnitude of this opportunity, to say that am I willing to really just shake its hand or really grasp it with both my hands, and create something that I'm going to be proud of.
No, brilliant. I think even these two things are like worth our entire episode. So I'm happy about that. One thing I wanted to ask, like especially in sort of like thinking about frameworks. How do you think about, okay, here's a place where we can improve or
Sure.
like accelerate with AI?
Yeah.
And how do you identify that within your orgs and
Sure.
your teams?
Yeah.
I think I think a framework like that would be pretty useful
Yeah.
for like people. Yeah.
I think it's a brilliant question. Actually, this is a really great question because every company is different depending on their focus. Are they a technology company? Are they an asset-heavy company? Where they're located? But the principles stay the same. So I'll tell you some of the principles that we considered. For example, one of the areas that we got some very initial success that really created a lot of momentum in our company was RFPs. And the idea was responses to RFPs, right? And I have actually been in pre-sales. Early in my career, I was first in services, then I came in pre-sales. I was a systems engineer, sales
That explains
engineer,
a lot, but
right?
yes, go on.
And
Vishal,
then
yes.
I became a VP of sales engineering. And so I have experienced the amount of RFPs an organization gets. And in some ways, if you think about it, right, for every organization, especially if it's a for-profit, ability to sell, land new customers, land new opportunities is seminal. But what is great about RFP is you have the data. So if I have good RFP responses, so for example, in our company, we had 40 people who were, focused on doing RFPs. And their constraint was they needed 2 weeks. If an RFP request came and they didn't have the 2 weeks, they would decline. So I have the data, I have something that's truly important, and I have something where we have a problem. Hey, I don't have the 2 weeks, I can't do a good job, therefore I don't respond. And so we said, this is a great use case. We have about 500 RFPs that we have done, so we have all kinds of data. Let's train using all these, RAG techniques and all of those things on it. And what we did was we did not even try to reduce the number of people. We said now you just are able to, use this data to answer the RFPs and you do the review. And we saw like a 30% increase in productivity.
Wow.
And more importantly, we saw a significant number of cases where we were now able to respond, which would have had to decline before.
Yeah.
And so, so now most organizations do answer RFPs. And so if you do have responses stored to the past RFPs, you probably spend a lot of time in it. You probably also know which ones you won.
Yeah.
You could train even on those.
Yes.
You could say, here are the 40 that I won. These are definitely good responses.
Yeah.
Let me train on these.
Yeah.
And then people can still review. Not a problem.
Yeah.
So that's one part of it. Do I have the data? Is there a compelling need? I think the other part, some of the other successes, I'll give you one more example that we really saw is in our industry, like every industry has some unique way through which they really make money. In our industry, that unique way is, we're like, the printers are kind of sold at a loss. The toners is where you make money. And so what you're really trying to do, toner is like software for us,
Yes.
right? Very high margin. And so what you're really trying to do is to make sure that people are actually using our toners. There's not fake toner that's getting used, which is in the market. And so what we were able to do with AI was, in the past, because a lot of times things were not connected, and you would think, hey, you should be able to figure out if it's your toner or not. But there are people who actively try to break that. And so how do I figure out? Because they take a used cartridge and they'll fill it again with their some other ink, and they'll try to break it. And so you actually, it's actually a hard data problem because you have hundreds of pieces of variables, and you're trying to say, similar to the world of security, you don't want a false negative. I don't want to accuse somebody of using a wrong toner when it's actually the right toner. So we used AI to actually be able to say, at the cartridge level, at the account level, what is our confidence in telling you that this is the right toner? And that itself ended up creating over $15 million in revenue for us at very high margins.
Yeah.
Right? And so you kind of have to think about, and there again, we had the data, we had a lot of stuff that we could see in terms of training it and in terms of doing all the pieces. The thing is, none of this stuff is easy.
Yeah.
All of it takes a long time. A typical project will still take many, many months. And so you really have to think about, do I have the data? Is this something that can produce, given it'll take a lot of effort and time, it'll produce 7, 8, 9 figures for me? Is it going to be material? Is it going to be strategic? And if yes, then go for it, because you have the opportunity that you did not have before.
Yeah. Combining two questions, especially because, with Lexmark, it's not just a manufacturing, it's all, you also like hinted at logistics here, you also hinted at like supply chain in like getting things to people at the right time. Plus the fact that you're trying to apply this technology across the board. So you're thinking complete org. Does it give you an advantage that you hold both, the CIO and the CTO roles? I think in our research, we're trying to when we're trying to figure out, your earlier conversations and like stuff that you were writing, this was something that I think we sort of were thinking, is it because you are in this position? Does it help, throughout that you're able to see the entire org in this way?
So I think the short answer is 100% yes. But it's always good to know why. See, I think fundamentally what is happening, and this is a broader than AI question, what is happening is these two worlds, which used to be separate. The CIO world was a lot around IT operations, and people used to have data centers, and the CIOs would go and maintain those data centers. Now they both, if I think about the world of software development and the world of CIO, they are very much coming together. They both are doing stuff in the cloud. And so I don't need all of that operational rigor that went into procurement of a server, the wiring, the cabling and all, right? All of that is gone. And so now you have not ops, but DevOps. Right? And DevOps is actually what? Development, that's software, and ops, that's IT operations and all. And so it makes sense for these worlds to be coming together. What is the other piece happening? Whenever I'm shipping some product for the customer, I think very deeply about security. Same, I'm thinking about creating stuff for my employees. And so the world of cyber and the world of development are also very much converging. also both IT and the software need to think about AI. And so for us, I think our CEO Alan actually gets the credit here, for envisioning this concept of connected technologies. Because in the past, what was happening was these two groups were in the same company but not working effectively
Absolutely.
together. And more importantly, not just by bringing them together, they were able to work better together. I think we were able to create a community with critical mass. So we now have enough people who are working on cloud on both sides who we cannot train up, just like we train up the AI people. We now have enough people who we could train up on security on both sides of the house.
Yeah.
And so you create a really combined community um, of people who are interested in a particular technology, who can now have scale to learn, apply, rotate, develop around the technology. And therefore, your ability to execute, attract people, develop them, and retain them goes up dramatically.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. There's a particular word you used, and it's so funny because I was thinking of the same word in the next question. You used the word convergence, and you used it twice. Like I think that's the crux of the answer that you gave, Vishal, in the sense that you a lot of these things are coming to a head because of AI,
Right.
and because no, I'll have to agree because of Gen AI, because AI always existed.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then
But it's agentic AI too, so it's
correct,
broader than
yes,
Gen AI.
even broader than that now. So, like, do you think and this is a slightly broader question, but like, we would love your perspective. Do you think the CIO's role itself is changed in like the last couple of years because of these convergences?
100%. So I think there are a couple ways the CIO's role is changing and enhancing and more challenging also, right? The first bit is, as you know, the knowledge economy. In the past, we used to have technology companies and non-technology companies. Now we're going to have more and more technology companies and technology-enabled companies. So even if I am Coca-Cola, if I'm not enabling myself with technology, I'm going to become extinct. Same with Walmart, right? Walmart or a bank like JP Morgan actually has more developers than some of the largest technology companies do.
Yes.
They're investing 50,000 people in software, in technology. And so firstly, for a CIO, the employees that I'm supporting themselves are also very technology savvy. So when I have people who I'm supporting who are already very technology savvy, the expectations are very high, my challenge goes up. That's number one. The second bit is, now as you mentioned, if I think about the way the world is evolving, you're going to have human workers, you're going to have agents. Who's going to manage them? Right? In the past, HR used to manage the human workers, but we're going to manage these AI agents who'll do this body of work. I would imagine the CIO in some ways is well positioned to manage those because they know how to manage apps, they know how to manage devices, they'll know how to manage these AI agents and manage them in a secure way with all the orchestration. So that's the second change. I think the third change that is happening is, the expectation that as a consumer of the services that the enterprise is producing is going up. We're all less patient. We want it now, right? And so what I have to deliver is becoming with a higher and higher expectation, right? Nobody likes if I have to, like, we go to the doctor's office, we're having to scribble information twice. We're like, what's going on, doc? I know you're not a technologist, but why are you making me write all this stuff there? And so this means my employees are asking me for more, my customers are asking me for more. My job is fundamentally changing in terms of the things I'm doing. And so, yes, that job is becoming harder. In fact, in this podcast I just attended, if I give credit to Bipul there, I think they are saying that many people are saying, and I agree, the CIO's job is going to become more like the CEO's job. Because now, if AI is really as transformative as we're talking about, then I have to actually change the way every function is done.
Yeah.
And for that, you need somebody who can work really across in a transformative way with each function to say which part should be done by human, which part should be done by agent. How do you do these things together in a way that actually 1 + 1 = 3? And so from all of these four factors, I think that job is fundamentally changing.
I think there's so many layers to that answer, and I think that there's a lot to take away. But like I'm going to like come back to a thing that you said before, because you've talked about people several times, and I was noticing that in this answer also you're bringing up people, and I think this is part of a larger philosophy of yours. When we were like looking up your earlier conversations, you've always said tech is only as good as people's ability to adopt it.
Yeah.
What about when organizations don't have the resources of, for example, Lexmark or even a Cisco, right? And you want to train them, and people are willing to train, willing to learn. Now, what is your sort of advice to like smaller organizations to like be able to like move quickly and like train their people?
Sure. So, I'm actually an advisor to many startups. As you know, we've interacted in that context, right, including Atomic Works.
Yes.
And what I find is sometimes smaller companies can actually be more agile, right? They are actually more forward thinking because they already have a little bit of a sense of paranoia that they need to establish themselves, right? That they have this big behemoth who is sort of cornering the entire market and they need to take their share. It's like if you think about, you have the elder kid in the house and then the younger is born and they try to make space for themselves by trying to be different. So I think the same thing applies there. So I would say the size actually can play to your advantage in this AI world, right? People are talking about unicorns with a one person. Can you create one person unicorn who can pretty much do the entire thing? Now, I think that's a little radical. But I do think the size can actually, so if you're a smaller company and you're watching this, you can actually become much more AI native because your change management, you haven't really gone and hired all those people and you don't have to now worry about how do I change their work. You can start in the optimal way day one. So you actually may have a leg up in terms of the transformation. It's a way of thinking, right? You could make your problem into your opportunity.
Yes, I think that's especially true. I think it's where you already have a set, I don't know systems because systems can change, but when you have set ideas and mindsets that you'll have to sort of evolve in this age, and I think leadership plays like a huge role. Do you think, leaders also have to sort of, upskill themselves as much as they can to sort of like drive this change? Because how do we, how do employees think? They look up to what is the CEO saying, what is the CTO saying?
Absolutely. So I think you hit actually a very great point. See, our people follow the leaders, and especially not just what they say, but what they do.
Yes.
Right? That's just the way it works. Even a kid at home, the parent will say study more, but they'll look at, okay, how did my father do? What was his mark sheet like?
Absolutely.
Right? And so one of the very interesting things that our CEO did, we had a company meeting. This was last year in 24. And, his first 5 minutes of the speech, he gave a lot of standing ovation. And he said, by the way, ChatGPT wrote this entire thing.
Wow.
And that was very, I think there was a little bit of a stern silence. That he said, all I fed was my last 4 board presentations.
Of course.
And it basically came up with a very cool thing. Like, you liked it, they're like, yeah, they're like, okay, this is it. And so I think that single act, if he and I kept on saying, hey, we could be using our OpenAI, our Microsoft Copilot to create all of the different things you're doing, get you more productivity, people will be like, yeah. But seeing the CEO, they're like, if he can do it, we can do it, right? Like that. So the leaders have to, I think, we did that when we did our all hands meeting too. We actually had a, the Copilot created a couple different slides and we interpersed with the slides we created and nobody could figure out who did which one. And so I think the leaders have to lead by example in their actions. And certainly also by how they approach. If the companies who are not going to make progress in this is where they're just placing the entire burden on the IT guy, on the CIO, saying, you figure it out and we're going to go and do your own thing. It's not going to work. You may as well shut your shop and go home. You're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, brilliant. I really like that answer. Like, I think that a bunch of things that we've touched on sort of lead to that. In terms of like everything that we do has to come from the top, and you have to align everybody. It's not just the people. You have to align the data. You have to align
Yeah.
the technology that you get, and so on. Slightly turning gears, Vishal, like you follow sort of an 80-20 rule, and you've said this before, developing internal talent versus hiring new. And do you think that you will have the same sort of approach now as well? And like, do the fundamentals change is the question actually.
So the 80-20, I think actually might have been come up by McKinsey or one of the management consulting firms. And the idea there was, so it's something I learned very early in my career. I started my career in management consulting. And what the 80-20 rule sort of tells you is that 80% of the value comes from 20% of the things. So it sort of tells you to focus.
Yeah.
Because with all the noise that exists in the world, we cannot do everything. And so what a lot of companies end up facing is this analysis paralysis and trying to figure out what to do, they end up doing nothing. And so the idea is you don't have to be 80%, you don't have to be 100% right. If you're 80%, you're not going to have perfect information. So if you have 80% of the information, go and do it. If you can figure out what are those few things that will cause 80% of the effect, go do those instead of completely being a purist and figuring this out. And so I do apply that even in my day-to-day life to think about, for example, I would encourage even your viewers to think about that, right? Like if you read Dale Carnegie, and he wrote this book, what, 80 years back, maybe, right?
Yes.
Habits of Highly Effective People. He talks about on a Sunday evening, figuring out what you want to get out of the week. On the evening before you start your next day, figuring out what are the one or two things you want to accomplish in that day. And because of all the noise, we sometimes forget what's going to matter, what's going to make a difference. And so that's what 80-20 tells you, right? And these things are ways you can use that discipline of the Sunday night to say, okay, in that week, what are the top 3 things? On that day, what is the number 1 thing I need to get done? Because we'll get drawn with the meetings, with the emails, with the Slack, with the teams, but at the end of the day, did I actually accomplish the most important thing I was trying to get done?
Nice. And it's also funny like how the fundamentals like stay. Like this is a book that's so old, and like all of us have it on our tables. Our dads had it, and like these lessons still hold true.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is a question that I wrote specifically for you. Like, what does your team and your employees expect from you that's different from 5 years ago? Like, I think there's a change, and like with your experience, I really want to see like what are they asking of you that they were not asking of you like 5 years ago.
So I think now, people, I probably end up working with more senior leaders, more experienced leaders as time has gone on. And so they need, in some ways, less and less direction from me. And so what they are looking for, so a lot of, in the past, like when I would inherit teams, they would not have done a lot of the stuff. And so I would share a lot of stuff with them. But now I think, they say the Socrates way is not to give the answer, but ask the right questions. So I really try to practice that more and more because, what I try to do now more and more is to see how it should not be like a star framework where you're the center of decisions. You're the center of things, right?
Yeah.
If you're a good leader, you want to actually develop a process where you're actually not at the center. It has to be as decentralized as possible. And so I try to practice both the Socrates method more and more in terms of asking the right questions. And I try to have a bigger, I think, ability in terms of taking risks where applying the 80-20 rule, I don't have to be involved in a lot of the things, right? What are the things that are actually truly going to be changing the game in which I should get involved and then take a bit of risk, let people experiment. And if they don't get it fully right, it doesn't matter. And so I think I have myself also matured perhaps in realizing, that the growth happens, nobody learns a cycle or swimming by not falling or not momentarily panicking, right? And so you sort of have to let the teams do more and more of that and only, and get them to the answer as opposed to give the answer.
Thank you, Vishal. It's very like I could tell that that's a very honest answer. Like you've thought about this a lot, and I think that sort of like leads me to exactly what I was speaking to you about before before we started recording, right? It turns out that our audience is like a lot of young IT leaders, looking to learn from people like you, build careers and, done so much stuff, people they look up to. But they are confused right now. There's a bunch of things happening and, they are like 5 years into your role or 3 years into the role and they're like, okay, I'm ambitious, I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to put in a lot of, work. But with the landscape shifting so hard, what should they be thinking about? What should they be doing for growth?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a different answer, right? I think, for those who are young, right, firstly, congratulations. I wish I was in that group, not where I'm at, but you're actually in a fascinating place, right? You have the world is your oyster, you have the years ahead of you. I think one of the things that our generation maybe did not optimize as much on, we didn't think early in a career as much about wellness. We thought a lot about work, right? And so I would encourage actually those people who are young to, invest in their wellness before they need it, right? That would be the one. But because physical and mental agility go hand in hand, right? And so the more you invest in it, the more productive you will be, the longer you'll be able to do it, the bigger change you'll be able to bring. So that's one bit. I think the other bit is clearly change is accelerating. We can all see that. It's also making a lot of people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stress that I see among young people out there. And I think a lot of it is unfortunately perpetuated by social media as well. And so I would really encourage you, we were talking about going back to basics, right? But I would really encourage you to go back to basics in terms of, as we think about the wellness, to say, okay, how do you spend enough time not just kind of passively absorbing a lot of things, but also thinking. Because the more time we spend with TV, with our phones, and we're kind of gotten to the point where people are not able to think. They're just absorbing the data. It's very disorienting actually, right? And so you sort of have to, for example, I've learned some basic things like, okay, shut out all of this media an hour before you sleep. Don't see any of this for at least an hour till you get up and all. And so I'm actually giving them more life things to think about, because the more physically fit you are, you'll be mentally fit. The more you are relaxed by not just getting engaged with all of this social media and everything, you'll actually be able to think. And then apply that 80-20 rule to say, okay, for your life, what's going to really matter? What is important? And therefore, what can you do to go get it? The only other thing I would add to that is that in the past, we went to college, we learned something, and we applied that throughout our life to make a living. We all know that now it's about continuous learning, just like with AI, right? And so your ability to be a learner, so investing at least 1 to 2 hours a week learning, is going to become very critical. Your manager may not tell you that, your leaders may not tell you that, but that's self-investment that you really have to do at any age you're in to continue to reinvent yourself, to continue to be relevant.
No, absolutely.
So those are the 3 things around that I would sort of tell them to do.
No, thank you for that answer. I think we don't talk about it enough. Even at Atomic Work, like we did a webinar with Paul Brandwald a few weeks ago. It was focused on mental health, for IT folks, and part of the reason was that we had come to the same conclusion, sort of that everybody's telling IT folks how to do their jobs better, how to learn, and so on. But we've sort of forgotten that
how to relax.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody is so on edge these days with learning and like working, that they need that as well. So like spot on. The last question, Vishal, like what books would you recommend to all of us? Like they don't have to be like about IT or about tech in general, but anything that you think that we should all read.
So, I'll confess, I'm not reading as many physical books now. It's mostly Audible, but I had actually read a physical book 2 days back when I was flying to Sri Lanka.
Lovely.
From India, and this was actually a bestseller in India. I think you probably may have read it. I think it's called like the Nagas.
Yep. The Secret of the Nagas.
The Secret of the Nagas. It actually was very interesting for me, right? Because I am at this age reading a lot about a mythology. I also saw this movie Narshiman.
Yes.
That has just come out as well, right? And we're talking about Dale Carnegie, right? Actually, if I look at, no matter what your national origin is, like a lot of mine is from India, right? But same is true for all the old civilizations, right? You might be from whichever country you're from. Uh, a lot of, we think we're unique in the things we're experiencing, but people have experienced across hundreds of thousands of years what we have experienced. And so our mythology, no matter what area you're coming from, is actually filled with lots of interesting insights
Yes.
that we don't pay importance to, that the Nagas book really made me realize, like how these Nagas are fighting Abdali, right? The most feared ones, and,
Yeah.
and being so successful, right? You've seen this movie of 300, right? Where they
Yes.
meet the whole thing in the
Battle of
Mediterranean side.
Thermopylae.
Exactly, right? And so I think some of these, going back to some of the older books as opposed to always
Yes.
running after the newest bestseller is what I'm rediscovering more and more. That's sort of making me realize the lessons I've learned, 30, 40, 50 years back,
Yeah.
and seeing how relevant they still are in today's day and age. So with all the change, the principles don't change. The first principles don't change.
Absolutely. One of my projects is also go to read the Harvard Classics at some point. So thank you so much for this, Vishal. This was great. I think
Thank you.
we learned a lot, and I'm sure our audience would.
I learned from talking, so I learned a lot as well.
No, thank you so much, Vishal. Thank you for coming on Atomic Conversations.
Thank you for having me.